Welcome to a special Father's Day episode of the Immigrant Education Collaborative podcast. I have two special guests with me, a dear childhood friend and his son. So I have David Teixeira and his son, Dwayne Teixeira. How you guys doing?
We're
Good,
doing great,
pretty good,
man.
pretty good, Craig.
Good,
hmm
good. Thank you for taking the time out to do this, fellas. I really appreciate this. So before we
No
get started,
problem.
man, condolences to you, David, and to you, Dwayne, on the passing of your mom and grandma. My
Thank you, Mr.
condolences to
Andrews.
you both. Yeah. So let's get started, man. David, tell me, growing up in St. Vincent, I knew you since I was a little kid, and I know how ambitious and hardworking you were. Like, what did education mean to you, growing up? Like, what was the thing about education that you were like, I have to kind of pursue this and commit to this? Like, where did that come from?
Andrews, first of all, let me say thank you for having me here and my son, of course. It's a pleasure to even be here and a
Mhm.
matter of fact with you in this
Mhm.
platform. So thank you for that opportunity.
Absolutely.
Uh, so in St. Vincent, I've known you, of course, as a youngster, put it that way.
Yeah.
Not living too far
Yeah.
away from you. And I must add also that your dad, your granddad, I should say, played a very vital part in my being here today by giving me the opportunity to earn a little money when things was rough. So I got to put that out there. I always,
Nice.
working with him
Yeah.
at a very early age. But education for me was tough. I use the word tough because my mom was a child actually when I was conceived, and that made it extremely difficult because she didn't have any sort of formal education.
Mm-hmm.
So as a result of that, going to school and being able to do my homework and getting any sort of help at home was pretty much zero. There was
Mm-hmm.
there was no chance,
Mm-hmm.
never existed. Why? Because my mom just could not have assisted.
Mm-hmm.
Not only that, I didn't really realize that my mom was like that until I remember I would have been around 5 years old. Um, back in those days, they beat a lot in schools uh, if you do not have your homework and so forth. And I was reliant because of my hyperactivity, been talking a lot in class and so forth. I miss a lot of information, so I would rely on, let's say, when I get home, my mom or somebody could have actually helped.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not until I asked my mom to assist because I want to save getting a good whooping, so to speak, when I
Mm-hmm.
go back without the homework. And when she said to me that, I really can't because I didn't get too far. I was very, very young. And I remember that stood out in my head and I never asked again. So that sets the prelude, so to speak, of
Mm-hmm.
education and the value of education moving forward
Mm-hmm.
for me. That's the foundation, that's the fundamental right there.
Mm-hmm.
So it was tough. It was very tough, and I got a lot of beating in school, a lot of beating from every teacher, almost all. Um, because whenever I get home, no one can help me. And when I'm in class, I cannot remain focused on what was being taught in school. The
Mm-hmm.
very fundamentals, like the
Mm-hmm.
alphabet and the phonetics and so forth.
Mm-hmm.
I miss those really cool things that was very necessary
Mm-hmm.
because later on, of course, I learned not because I was dumb or crazy or whatever. It's just something called ADD and ADHD, and
Mm-hmm.
that's something that just told him that I diagnosed myself. Oh, that's what I had.
Yeah.
Running my mouth, doing a million things, not
Yeah.
focusing on class, just having difficulty focusing on the essentials.
Yeah.
And so that was it for me, and that sets the importance of education, how important education is and should be
Mm-hmm.
moving forward, and with my kids and everyone
Mm-hmm.
and so forth.
No, no, nice, nice. I mean, thanks for sharing that, man. I think that opens up a lot, right? In being born to a mom who was, pretty much, a child herself, that just opens up a lot of challenges for any child. All right. So, Dwayne, I'm gonna ask you, man, like, what are your first memories of, of going to school? as a child? Like, what are your first memories? Like living with your dad, going to school. What are those first memories? Are they kindergarten? Are they preschool? Like, where are you when you think back to your earliest school memories?
Yeah, my earliest school memories, I would say Maple Leaf Academy. That was preschool. I still have a yellow shirt that with it on there.
Mm-hmm.
I remember playing like in the Santa Claus play,
Mm-hmm.
and there it was in New York. So I never realized having an accent was a thing at that moment. When I moved to Maryland, that's when it was a little bit different. I believe I was like in the second grade or so in Maryland, and then that's when I was living on base, on military base. I was around different people. Then in New York, nobody had an accent. I wasn't surrounded by Caribbeans. So that's
Yeah.
when I realized, oh, I do talk a little different. I had to kind of deal with that and,
Yeah.
get a little bit, how it is, get a little
Yeah.
bit kind of in tune with everything going on and how to deal with getting picked on and all that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. You know, um, but yeah, I remember like I started everything here. So I remember my earliest years of school here. I remember everything from like I said, from preschool, second grade, all the way up to graduating high school.
So David, tell me, man. So, going back to how, what you described with your mom, right? So now you're a parent, right? So now the roles are kind of, we fast forward a bit. So now you're a parent, you have Dwayne, you guys are going through the school system. So based on your history and all the things that you've learned, and you're trying to instill, good habits in him, but you also, understanding, the challenges that come, with being a single parent and raising a child. Talk us through, that process. Why, Dwayne comes, you guys are in America, you're going to school. What is that like for you as you're learning the system and trying to provide the best education for him?
Well, there's only one way I can describe that, and that
Mm-hmm.
is trying to kill three birds with one stone.
Mm.
And what I mean by that is being a single parent,
Mm-hmm.
going to school myself,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes full time,
Mm-hmm.
taking what, 12 credits,
Mm-hmm.
and full time being a single parent, and the other thing just slipped my mind.
Yeah.
I've always thought about that. The three things that I've always done, while raising him, that made it so extremely difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what I did was I often find time to make sure that my son and his work was taken care of in school.
Mm-hmm.
Even if sometimes there were many times I came home and I have not seen him because I got to get up. I was in the military then and I had to get up early to rush off to work for PT, physical exercise, let's say around 5:30 or so.
Mm-hmm.
Coming from school, getting up all in the morning. That was quite a challenge for me.
Mm-hmm.
But I would never go to sleep or go to work unless I ensure that Dwayne, my son's work was checked.
Mm-hmm.
So I developed a system where he would put his book at my door.
Mm-hmm.
And while he's sleeping and so on, because as soon as I come home, he's asleep, things like that. And I
Yeah.
go on, he gone to school. I would make sure check his work and correct and so that's the way I use that method to teach him. And the reason why I did that is
Mm-hmm.
because he's a replica of who I am,
Yeah.
in the sense that the same difficulty and the challenges that I've had as a kid
Mm-hmm.
is exactly what he has. And that's how I ended up being a single parent, not because I wanted to have been a single parent, but I
Mm-hmm.
knew then that there's no other person who can understand my son the way I am. I studied him at a very early age
Mm-hmm.
and, very crazy, just like me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and all over and very, 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 very quick, very sharp too, very
Yeah.
smart. So I brought him here with me. I decided I was not going to migrate here unless I have my son with me for that specific reason. And his mom agrees. So
Yeah.
it was nothing, no fight or anything like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
I believe in the importance of having a mother and a father. That was another thing. So I was able to even be a part of his mom coming here and settling in the United States to be there still. I make sure and show right after that happened
Mm-hmm.
because I believe in both parenting.
Mm-hmm.
But I also, knowing my son and knowing myself, and have advanced to the point where I understood who I am in terms of temperament, personality, etc., I
Mm-hmm.
decided that there was nowhere I was going to leave him with anyone but
Mm-hmm.
me,
Mm-hmm.
where he's concerned as his being, his
Mm-hmm.
personality and so forth. Just like me, he's a
Yeah.
replica. Everything. It's unbelievable. So while he was here and knowing that, I understood exactly what to do to channel his energy academically where it needed to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know he's high energy, energetic, like people say, hyperactive, what do you want to call it.
Mm-hmm.
And again, he wasn't diagnosed. I was the one that diagnosed. It's not that he was ever on any meds or anything like that. But I know my son. You got to know
Right.
your people. You
Yeah.
can't wait on the system to diagnose. You got
Yeah.
to know your kids and come up with ways to be able to channel them into
Yeah.
the direction where you want them to go. And that is exactly what I did throughout.
This is good, man. So are you recognizing that that a lot of the things that you went through as a child, it kind of prepared you to be the parent that you were with him?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for that, it's funny that you asked that question. I
Yeah.
never give it a lot of thought. But if it wasn't for the child that I was, there's no way I would have understood how to take care of him.
Yeah.
And I think that is very, very a vital point for parents to understand. Unless you know yourself,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm talking about knowing yourself, knowing who you are, break yourself down and put it together back
Mm-hmm.
in all respect.
Right. Right.
It'd be very difficult for you to be able to analyze your offspring, your kids, and so on, and be able to create.
Mm-hmm.
There's no book.
Yeah.
Believe me, there might be things there, but there's no one could tell you how to raise your child.
Mm-hmm.
You have to know how to raise your child and in order and what the needs are and how to channel in every aspect, in
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah.
And so you have to know that. And in order for you to know that, one has to, as a parent,
Yeah.
you must be able to know you and
Yeah.
where you come from. You got to understand those fundamentals. I think I've studied those well.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. And I think the willingness has to be there also, right? And
Your
what you're,
willingness,
yeah,
absolutely.
I think what you're expressing
Absolutely.
is the willingness to be the best father, the best parent that you can be, and but also recognizing the things that were missing, right, or were challenging from your past, and you're trying to, just move the ball forward, man, and improve, with the next generation. So, kudos to you. Dwayne, I'm gonna come to you, man. So going to school in America, what was your experience like? Like now that you moved from New York, you moved to Maryland, you're getting your feet wet, you're fitting in with everyone. So talk to us about, like elementary school, middle school, like those years. Like how are things coming along for you at that stage?
Well, in elementary school and middle school, I was definitely in that same like he's already told you the hyperactive realm. So, I was doing a lot like in elementary school, just little stuff, getting in trouble, talking a lot,
Yeah,
stuff like always getting little referrals sent home. I was actually pretty creative. I got suspended one time for selling Dragon Ball Z pictures. I used the only person in class with a colored printer, so I used to print them out, use all my dad's ink, print out all the pictures, go to school, sell them for 25 cents. So people, because they would trace them and stuff like that.
yeah,
And I got caught. And, from that point, I guess we all realized that I had a little knack for business at that
yeah.
at that moment. But, so I was definitely learning how to be, I was strict home upbringing, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and then learning how to try to be like a regular kid too, because everybody wasn't really straight. We didn't live in the best neighborhood either.
Mm-hmm.
At that by the time we got into like that those years of like middle school and later elementary school and stuff, so it was definitely different, like a big curve. Lesson, learning how to pick friends, all that kind of stuff was just, it's regular, but it was different because I didn't have, it was my first time. I didn't have like an older brother, anybody that
Mm-hmm.
actually grew up here. My parents were This is their first time growing up here, so they aren't even realizing, the kind of stuff happening in Black America at the time, especially, you know what I
Yeah,
mean. There was a lot of stuff happening around that time in the late '90s and stuff like that. So I think it was kind of a learning experience for everyone
yeah,
growing up
yeah,
in those early ages, but yeah,
yeah,
I used to stay up late, real late. My dad used to keep me up late, making sure everything was done on time. Anytime I was good in school, but I would have a paper to do, and I wouldn't touch the paper until the day before it's due. So, his punishment was, well, we're gonna stay up until 4 o'clock in the morning, and
yeah,
we're gonna get this paper done. And I'm nodding out half sleep, and he's
yeah,
waking me up. And I
yeah,
feel like all of that is I noticed growing up too that not everybody's parents were doing that. my writing skills and my speaking skills were definitely sticking out. I were taking a lot more advanced classes only because that kind of time was being put in the early years, and you never realize that, you know, until you get to like your last year and you're like, wow, I got all these credits. I don't even have to go to school. You know what I mean? And I'm about to graduate. And then you're like, okay, so I was doing something, or something was getting done in the right
Yeah.
move. Yeah.
Yeah. So what you're saying is, as you're going through it, you don't realize the benefits that you're going to get down the road. You
Yeah.
know, as you're putting in those 4 a.m. Research papers,
Yeah.
you don't realize how much that's going to pay off for you. But David, quickly, man, what do you think, as you're doing this, right? Like, what are the challenges that you're having, like understanding how to navigate the American education system? So as Dwayne is going through middle school, through elementary school, getting ready for high school, like what's helping you? Like, are you connecting with the school? Are you just trying to figure things out on your own? What are you doing as a parent to help support him as he's going through these transitions?
Well, I strongly believe in leading by example, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much.
Mm-hmm.
I show the importance of education by simply being curious myself, I
Mm-hmm.
should say,
Mm-hmm.
and my belief on where I actually needed to have gotten. So I enrolled in tertiary education here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I had him here with me. I was going to Anne Arundel Community College. I got my associate, then I went to University of Maryland. There I got a bachelor's, and then later on I did some went to grad school at Johns Hopkins and graduated. So the point I'm trying to make is here, while he was in school, I was in school also.
Right.
I was leading by example.
Right.
So
Right.
that kind of gave me, I really wanted to learn the system well. And not only that, that was from that higher learning, that
Yeah.
tertiary education, but
Yeah.
I wanted also to learn his system, what
Mm-hmm.
he's doing in class.
Mm-hmm.
So I enrolled here in Anne Arundel as a substitute teacher. So I would take off from work and I would go substitute in the class and so forth. I think I was substituting maths and some other thing. But I share this with you quickly. One time he came into the class. I can't remember what grade he was then. And he didn't realize that because I never said anything. And he busted into the class, and there I was waiting
Yeah.
for as a substitute. He always talk about that.
Yeah.
I don't know how that will be as a parent or kid. I didn't think he likes it at all.
Yeah.
But I was there substituting in all his classes and
Yeah.
also my daughter class and so forth. That's the second one, Jasani's. But I have always followed them and become like a part of the what you call it, the in the school, like where you have the parent teachers and
Mm-hmm.
so on.
Yeah.
I was the PTA,
Yeah.
PTA,
Mm-hmm.
Parent
Mm-hmm.
Teacher Association. I
Yeah.
was a vice president and always follow like that. And so there's a reason why I did that, because I really wanted to understand the system, and I wanted, secondly, to be able to network,
Mm-hmm.
and so that the kids, the teachers would be able to understand my son through
Yeah.
me as a foreigner and so
Yeah.
forth.
Yeah.
He mentioned something earlier about being kids picking at him for his accent.
Mm-hmm.
Again, that's what it's important to know your kids and understanding a lot.
Mm-hmm.
He can tell you exactly how I dealt with that part of it. I and a lot of my sister, my siblings here in the US thought I was crazy.
Mm-hmm.
And they used to pick at me and mock at me at times and say, well, you should leave the child alone. Leave them alone every minute, every minute. Yes, I did that. There was a reason. They never understood why I did that, but I would drill him into grammar.
Yeah.
We'd be driving, I'll be in the front, he's in the back, and I would give him a sentence, he might speak something, I would stop him, and it was always subject verb agreement and this kind of thing. Just drill him, drill him, drill him. I wanted to use proper grammar,
Yeah.
even if you have an accent, to be able to overcome
Yeah.
the barriers
Yeah.
and the heckling from other kids here in his class.
Yeah.
And it worked amazingly.
Mm-hmm.
Till he won a lot of things. He was always in the advanced classes, just name it, from the AP to the Avid, and he knows all. He was never in those regular classes with his friend. He was always in the different classes.
Yeah.
They love him to death and are always scoring real high and doing real well throughout school, pretty much. But understanding the deficit and be creative enough
Mm-hmm.
to be able to implement, I should say, workable solution around family is necessary. And as a parent, if you're a good parent,
Mm-hmm.
yourself, you will know that, and you should one should be able to create. It worked for me a lot, and it
Yeah.
worked very close with him throughout
Yeah.
school.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's awesome, man. Dwayne, tell us, man. So what was it like in your shoes, being parented by your dad as you're going through this? Like, could you appreciate what your dad was doing? Did you see at that time, especially when you got to high school, you could see how hard your dad's working. He's also going to school, trying to lead by example
Yeah.
and show you that he's working. So what type of example do you think your dad set for you, and how did that impact you as you were growing up?
He said a great example. I think that as I got older, I started learning kind of more of where the struggles might have been. Because of course, when you're a kid, your parents don't show you, how busy all the time or how much they're actually doing. You're a kid, you're at school most of the time. They come home, so you're not really seeing exactly what's going on behind the scenes. So you get older and you learn to, respect that and to realize that. I'm gonna be honest. I think that also like with his parenting style, being strict, being Caribbean, being super focused on school, and then also with me trying to grow up and growing into a new person, playing brand new sports, being around new people, I think that there was, definitely a lot of a pull there, where
Mm-hmm.
we kind of like, I wanted to grow into being one thing, he wanted me to stay in one path, and of course, naturally, like, like I feel like normally happens normally in families, there was a little bit of a pull in those high school years where things definitely went opposite. But like I said, he stayed consistent with who he was, and of course, that always I always had a tight strain to bring me back on track, and I always stayed focused on the smart things. Like you said, I made sure I stayed good in my grades. I made sure I stayed up in my grades, up in class, in the best classes, so that one thing I learned was that if my grades are okay, my grades are good, he would leave me alone a little bit, right? You know
Right,
what I
right.
mean? So, definitely just learning how to just, we learned how to grow and how to
Yeah,
appease each other at the time, as
yeah,
we grew into it. So yeah, it was definitely a full relationship. Just as far as like I said, full learning curve for both of us and just,
yeah,
trying to figure it out.
yeah. So what you're saying is that you learn how to finesse some breathing room by making sure your grades were on point.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. You gotta, and like you said, any relationship you have to learn how to, there's give and take and
Yeah,
everything. You know what I
yeah,
mean? So, there was definitely, yeah, give and take and everything. So I had to be able to, yes, I said, finesse a little bit of
yeah,
time,
yeah,
sneak my way to those tryouts and those
yeah,
practices sometimes just to, you know what I mean?
yeah,
But like I said, after those, especially the early years as we got older and talked a little bit more, I'm just, you know what I mean, and grew, I feel like things just started coming together little by little,
yeah.
you know.
No, that's what's up, man. So Dwayne, tell us, man. So now you're in high school. Big man on campus. You're playing basketball. You're comfortable in your skin. So while you're in high school, what are you thinking about in terms of like a career after high school? Like why, walk us through like, 10th grade, 11th grade, 12th grade. Like what sort of careers are you pondering at this time?
At this time, I was thinking of definitely something in like computers.
Mm-hmm.
I just didn't know what in computers. I just knew I
Mm-hmm.
was into computers. I took a couple programming classes. I decided I kind of liked programming, but I felt like I would have enjoyed more with the hardware side of things. You know what I mean? So I was
Mm-hmm.
kind of thinking about that. Then I played basketball in 11th grade, and that's when I started getting. I started realizing like, oh, I can go to school, I can play ball. I'm actually kind of good at this.
Yeah,
Senior year came around. Talks about maybe going D3, and I just
yeah,
started playing basketball, so I feel like I got a lot better for as soon as I started playing
right.
and things like that. But I was thinking definitely on the engineering side of things is where my head was going. And then I think around 11th grade, maybe 12th grade year, I was making beats. I downloaded all these beat softwares on my dad's computer, and I'll be down there just like playing stuff and trying to learn it, and then
Right.
finally get my own computer. So I didn't think about going to college for that, but I started just getting into that whole side of things. And then by my senior year, I realized that there was like a thing called engineering. And I was like, oh, my audio engineering seems like something I would love to do. Like working
Mm-hmm.
in this kind of environment seems like something I would love to do. So that's kind of how it changed. I was really just super into engineering, figure like, that's what you're told to do. You go to school, you find a trade that you don't mind doing.
Mm-hmm.
And then, yeah, I got to my senior year, and I actually joined the military before I went to school. But yeah, before that last choice of joining the military, my goal was, well, I can work with computers, or I can work in the recording studios, maybe work with the labels, maybe work in TV and film. That was my actual goal. I didn't really want to get into the music side. I really wanted to get into audio engineering for movies and film, because I figured that's where the money was
Right.
in that situation. But that's my interest is kind of went that and led that way, as time went on.
Yeah. No, I love that, man, because you're talking about, kind of discovering, an interest, which then becomes a passion as you, gain confidence and get enough reps in it and grow in it. And then so
Right.
little by little, you're literally paving this path for your, for your life that you enjoy. So what is that like that you found, you started downloading these beats on your dad's computer, and then you continue to plug away, and then now, it
Yeah.
leads to this, you know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I was one of the first kids in school. I used to have friends come over. We used to record little songs. So that was like the first. I was in that first generation. I got a digital camera. I was my mom's only kid, so she used to spoil me all the time, buying me, all the games, all the little electronics. Had a little cell phone, all that kind of cool stuff. So I was
Yeah.
videotaping stuff all the time. Just getting into this entertainment a little bit, and just that kind of things. Being that kid, getting a little popular in school.
So no, I think you covered it, man. Because what we're talking about essentially is you discovering the interest, right? Which then
Yeah.
becomes a passion because you put a lot of time in it, you toil, you work at it, and then this blossoms into essentially what you're doing today.
Yeah, exactly.
You
And
know?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
took some time to get there. And like I said, even with the learning curve with my dad and I, he didn't quite understand that there was even like a career there at
Hmm.
the time, and neither did I. So I
Yeah.
couldn't even really express it, in a way of like, okay, there's a professionalism, there's a career here.
Hmm.
So that was a whole thing. I think even like I said, the learning curve, my dad didn't know too much about internships or anything at the time. So,
Yeah.
these are all stuff that we learned as we were getting older, things that could have even fast tracked the process,
Right,
even
right.
further. But I
Yeah.
think joining the military, after that high school, and I was still in that same one track mind, still had always spent money on my own gear. I was still trying to make extra money by having people come to my dorm room and record them, and they'll pay me a little bit of extra money. So I was doing that all throughout the military.
Right.
Then realized, okay, by the time I got out the military, realized, okay, I can take this to maybe a next step. And that's when I really started getting focused just on business, trying to brand myself, trying to get into doing the internships, unpaid internships is where I started off at, and I'll just work my way up. And
Yeah.
and because I started so young, and I stayed where I was at, I feel like that allowed me to kind of fast track the process. It allowed me to get into an internship and go to a paid position really quickly, because
Yeah.
I understood a lot of things from the ground up. You
Yeah.
know.
No, no, I love this, man. I'm gonna come to you, David, in 1 second. So I want to tie this all together, right? And David, I want you to tell me if this makes sense. So Dwayne talked earlier about using all the ink in your printer, right? To take the Dragon Ball Z pictures to school to sell them, which meant that he was enterprising. He was already an entrepreneur early, right? He's very enterprising, he's very hands-on, he's very I guess what's the word? He's creative, right? So creative
Extremely
self-expression is
creative.
very extremely creative, right? So you're seeing all this, and you spoke earlier about recognizing your kid, knowing your kid, even maybe helping them to hone the talents, right? So now when you think back about yourself, and I know you as a child, you were also very enterprising, right? You were
Yes,
someone who was always trying to make things happen. And so Dwayne has a lot of that in him, right? So the fact that you were
yes,
there to kind of nurture, support, and push him in a sense, despite not being completely clear on where this was going to go, but still giving him the space to, to experiment, right, and explore. And then now you're seeing that, how he's blossoming, and he's coming into his own. So now when we kind of go back to even your childhood, what you went through, and then you look at Dwayne's childhood and where he is, and you're seeing there's a nice continuum. So when you talked about the ADHD, the hyperactivity, really
yeah,
it was more so the creative outlet is really what he was searching for.
absolutely,
You know what I mean?
absolutely.
So speak
Yes,
about that.
that's a very good uh yes, good question there. I
Mm,
like that, and it kind of made me just start thinking.
yeah.
And I think with all that, I would say this: that is one of the deficit, or one of the way I would say, I don't want to use the word fail,
Mm-hmm.
but if I had to advise parent, especially single parent,
Mm-hmm.
with a female or men, usually men are not, you will find a lot of, you do have, but
Yeah.
not a lot of male single. You understand? But
Yeah.
one of the things advice I would give on that is you pretty much want to follow the flow of your kids as
Mm-hmm.
much as possible. And
Yes.
that's one
Yes.
of the things that I didn't do. And I should have,
Mm-hmm.
because of my own life. I remember when I started, I I always wanted to be a teacher from small, because back in the small island, it was in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, especially coming and being raised in the countryside. Um, People looked up at teachers and police and nurse, because those were the jobs really,
Mm-hmm.
although they were not highly paid. So I've always wanted to be a teacher, and from a very early, when I was a kid,
Mm-hmm.
always have all those guys play. My favorite thing was always school. Let's play school,
Mm-hmm.
and all those guys on the park. Sometimes you remember the bleachers there
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
the park. We would sit there and we have groups, and then you give tests, and then you pass, you move to the top one, and then so those guys can. A lot of those guys can tell you that, and I always wanted to be the head teacher of that
Yeah.
growing up.
Yeah.
Um, and of course, I graduated second in my high school class, and
Yeah.
I was employed at Emmanuel High School. I taught for about 2 years, up to 11th grade.
Yeah.
So I'm very proud of that. I've
Yeah.
always wanted to be that. I love sharing
Yeah.
and learning
Yeah.
too. Um, in addition to that, I have always wanted to be a police officer. One, because I was always scared of police. I think they were very powerful, and I wanted to be that person too.
Mm-hmm.
And the military and so on, I learned that from cadetting and camping out in the country, and I saw them with guns and so I gravitated really towards that. So teaching and the military has always been my passion, and I started like Dwayne very early. I remember after there was a cadet camp in Maricon Secondary School, and I no sooner had to finish and move out with all the guys guarding with the empty rifles and so on. I saw all that, and the stripe, the rank, and the hat and all. I started getting cardboard, and the first thing I do was to build all pull guys together, and I take paint pans, and we make drums and put it around us and so forth, and I put stripe with at the shoulder, and I was emulating
Yeah.
exactly what I saw
Right.
and leading. I remember that those guys like Papi and Rayman and all those guys they can tell you that.
Mm-hmm.
And as I did that, and I grew up to become a cadet right after I started high school, I wanted to be that.
Mm-hmm.
And right after that, I wanted to be a police, like I said. So I became a police officer. I went to Antigua and I served there, and then to the Virgin Island and I served. So I've done a lot of policing. Well,
Mm-hmm.
probably like maybe 7 years
Mm-hmm.
total. And then moved here to the United States and joined the military, and joined the administrative work within the correction department. So I work in those areas that I love, that I enjoy, and that I studied and so forth in all aspects, paramilitary and military organization. Come back to Dwayne now. The same thing I've seen, where he didn't tell you, because he didn't even greater than that at a very early age. When he talked about purchasing the thing, and he had a business going on for real. He used to have money all over the house, and very good at money. He was a business
Yeah.
strategizing business,
Yeah.
and a lot of my friends who understood what he was doing, and the music and the beats and so forth, they would be like, your son is amazing. They kept praising him, but I was blind to that type of
Mm-hmm.
thing.
Yeah.
I wanted the traditional doctor and lawyer and so forth, like that kind of thing. That's what most parents would. And that's what I said, if I had to do it again. And I learned from him with the other kids,
Mm-hmm.
because I didn't understand what this engineering thing that he talks about and so on. I was just seen as one thing, just be, oh, anybody can do that. I don't. Then I saw when he went to the military, that's another thing. I created that platform for him by joining the ROTC and try to get him ready for that, so he can fall back.
Mm-hmm.
And he joined the Air Force, which is one of the top here, and so and did very well. And he graduated from there, and he went to college in Florida, and joined this nice school that he always wanted to be at, and learned that for got his degree from there.
Yeah.
And he had to do things like he was telling me about base one, base two, and the chemistry. If one of those things he was telling me, and I couldn't believe it. My eye opened. I was like, I should have led him down that path a long way. I didn't realize that's what it is, and you got to do all those to get a degree and to work. I didn't see the bigger picture within what he was doing, and
Yeah.
he said he didn't see it either.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So my advice, that's why I said I advise any parent when you see your kids are going in one way,
Yeah.
you follow it, or you guide, not
Yeah.
to pull and lead and say, I want you to be this guy. He really rebelled
Yeah.
against us trying to get him into where we wanted him to be. And
Yeah.
I'm so proud of him now, extremely proud of understanding the whole thing. And he making good money and meeting stars and so on and
Yeah.
working with those guys. I
Yeah.
mean, some top guys.
Yeah.
And doing his own business and going places. So I'm very, very proud of him for what he has done. And almost every day I apologize to him for not allowing, following his pathway
Yeah.
towards his career.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the comparison pretty much. I should have seen it from
Yeah.
my way, starting being creative and doing my little thing, which you know very
Mm-hmm.
well
Mm-hmm.
because you know growing up in the same village.
Yeah.
To him starting here, his little music and so on, pulling things. I didn't know so much about the ink. The ink did go quickly, I must say that, but I knew that's what he did. But
Yeah.
um, yeah, but that was good. That was very
Yeah.
good. He was very, very good. A lot of those guys, you
Yeah.
remember Eric and all those guys used to tell me, your son is so good. He's good at me. So he started a long time and he should have a portfolio there. I don't know if he kept it still, but
Yeah.
he has been very good at it.
Yeah. No, I
Mhm.
love this, man. Dwayne, I think for you, man, it's kudos to you for like just sort of following your heart and your passion, right? And being curious to really build the skill and to really stand 10 toes down on the thing that you feel like this is your calling and this is meaningful to you. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I think what you're doing is you're paving a path for others to come behind you. You know what I mean? Because
Yes.
yeah,
yeah, because you
Yeah.
easily could have
yeah.
just thrown in the towel when there was a little bit of friction and just been like whatever, but you kept going. So what does it feel like, man? Tell me what it feels like to kind of, I know you got, bigger goals and bigger dreams ahead. I'm not gonna ask you to disclose those, but how does it feel?
Yeah.
What's your progression where you are now? How you feel about that?
Honestly, man, with my progression, I feel I'm really kind of excited. It still drives me and pushes me just to see what I can do now and where how far I've come and what I'm able to do just with the reputation that I've built in this industry that I feel
Hmm.
like I don't know. It makes I'm of course very very proud, but it just makes me also see how big how much further I can take it,
Yeah.
as well as it changes my thinking because now it goes from like the traditional thinking of getting a job and just trying to work your way up in this job, and
Hmm.
now it's like I'm feel like I'm learning again, like I'm in school all over again. I'm learning how to about business. I'm learning about money differently. I'm learning about how to strategize an online business. I'm seeing other people that are in my shoes making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. So I'm realizing, what I mean, this like just with any business, there's steps to it, things that
Hmm.
they didn't teach us in school, and that's a whole nother thing. I feel like, especially with
Yeah.
us being Caribbean kids,
Yeah.
we aren't, we don't. Our parents are moving up here, so they aren't teaching us 100% about that side of things, and they don't, like I said, they don't 100% know either. So
Yeah.
being able to have that being able to have that thought process and like you said, maybe paving the way because it's okay to want to think about money. It's okay to want to be rich. It's okay to want to to want to chase your passion, you know what I mean? And then
Hmm.
but like there's a way to go about it. There's a way to go about it and be successful about it. And I think that even just the steps that I've taken, I can definitely help anybody, or anybody can follow those steps with any kind of creative because the world now is all going into creative jobs. Everybody's going into creative jobs. Marketing, the best marketers are the most creative marketers, and
Hmm.
that's still one of the highest paid industries. Down to cybersecurity and everything, even on the programming side, it all comes down to how creative you can be. And I think that once you find something that you can be creative and you love, then there's actually steps to follow what you love to be successful. There's already paved out steps. A lot of people have done it, and you can follow those same steps to start a business, to build a clientele, to grow any idea into any into any amount of money.
Yeah.
So,
No, I love that, man. I think the theme here, what I love between, father and son is the curiosity, right? Like you guys have an insatiable curiosity to learn, to get better, to grow, but you're also flexible and adaptable. So I'm gonna start with you, Dwayne, and David, I'm gonna come to you. How much of that was already in you, and how did, being in the military sort of help you, you know,
Well, I'm gonna be honest, living with my dad prepared me for the military. It kind of
mhm,
gave me that resilience. I didn't, like I said, even being up the late nights, though, always thirsting for new knowledge. I didn't
mhm.
even realize that that would come into, but that came into play, and that was something I was always doing. And I see him now. I'm like, you're too old to be trying to work. You still working all these hours a day. He's still thirsty for new knowledge at this age, and it's funny because I'm still the same way, and I can see when I love something that thirst for knowledge will never go, and
Yeah.
that's how you grow. I feel like as a whole. So I would say that my dad really instilled a lot of that in me: the resilience, the thirst for knowledge, the wanting to continue, the not giving up. You know what I mean? I think he instilled a lot of that in me at an early age, so that when I got to the military, all it did was kind of strengthen it. I wasn't, nothing was surprising. All it did was strengthen all the core values and everything I was already taught. And then now after the military, I was able to get tunnel vision and focus on, kind of what I
Mhm.
wanted to focus on, and chase it directly with that same resilience, with because you don't always, you know how it goes. No matter what you do, you never get a bunch of yeses. You're going to get huge obstacles. You're going to come across huge obstacles. And I was able to take all those obstacles, take all these different things that were stopping me from going down my path, and have that resilience and that extra, that push to get where I'm at today. So I thank my pops for that one. You know what I mean?
No, no, I love that, man. So, David, tell us about the curiosity, man, and how, the military helped to hone that. I think you had that already. You had the curiosity, you had the thirst for knowledge, you actually had the initiative. There's a lot of initiative that you had, man. You talk about, the leadership skills were there. Maybe some of that is also being the first, sibling order. You're the oldest child, you're the first child, so
Mhm.
you're setting the example for those coming behind you. But just talk a little bit, because I feel as though you and Dwayne have this superpower, right? And one of the superpowers that leads to success is really that insatiable curiosity, right? The
Mhm.
willingness to learn, and wanting to learn and to grow and to get better. So talk to us about that.
Yes, and you're correct. We were always hungry for more,
Yeah.
both of us. That's one thing we have in, I guess that's what kind of bind us together in
Yeah.
that. If you look at it from a Venn diagram standpoint, in the center there,
Yeah.
hungry for more. So, I always believe in teaching responsibility early, right?
Yeah.
Um, um, uh, and so that's one of the things that always stood up. But I go back a little bit. Dwayne mentioned something when he talks about his successes and where he has gotten and so on, and the great things he has been doing. And one of the things, if I ask him what I always say to him, and I show, he would tell you that I always say, give God the thanks, give the Most High thanks. I believe in that a lot. And I should have really brought that in earlier,
Mhm.
because uh, I strongly believe in faith, and became a Christian really early, very early, baptized and all that back home. Nobody's perfect, as much as we stray off and so forth, but I knew exactly when I'm gone and how to come back. And without that, nothing is possible. I believe strongly in
Mhm.
that having some source that is much mightier than you, that there's somebody mightier than us, whatever it is, but always give thanks to some mightier source. That's very, very cool with me. So when I came here, like I said, I came here older. It's not like out of high school and jump into the military. So I don't think the military, I'll be honest with you, I gave the military, and it might be arrogant to say that. The military didn't really give me a lot. I came here starting very early from a scout to cadet, like I share some of the life. So those very basic, those fundamentals were already there with discipline and structure and so on is concerned. Flexibility. I mean, picture you being 18 years old teaching kids your age. I did, who repeated and so on and so forth. And then being a police officer, young man dealing with so much. I was running an island by myself, one cop,
Mhm.
the island of Antigua. I ran that for a whole year. It was supposed to have been a 6 months assignment, but the leadership, they refused to move me because I was doing such a great job.
Mhm.
Leave me there, and all the people wanted me there. I led it into the school, teaching, doing this, that, all that I was doing, creating a whole thing for me in the island, one of the British Virgin Islands. So structure and leadership is something that I brought to the military, and it really worked well
Mm-hmm.
to the point where I've gotten some great treatment and here, especially for me, where I was assigned to military intelligence, 704th MI, after coming from Korea. Again, I didn't even know how that happened because I was supposed to have a level of clearance, which I wasn't even able, and they still gave me that assignment from the Pentagon. And up to now, I didn't know how I get it. The grace of God.
Yeah.
That's after I leave Korea. I mean, that was amazing. I just don't know. I've always talked about it. Why me
Yeah.
compared to so many and knowing, So the point I'm trying to make is that I brought a lot there and I shared a lot, just as I did when I first went into the military. And that was discovered very early by the commandant and so on. They used to be like my juniors. I'm not, again, this is not boasting, but that for me, my commandant will come, the captain who's in charge of the whole unit, will sit with me and I'm there talking to him. And so those knowledge and so what I've gathered. And so the leadership was seen and was discovered. I've gotten all sorts of commendation medals for all sorts of things for leading there, for leadership
Yeah.
here in Fort Meade. So I came with a lot. I came with a lot from the British system. I came with a lot, and that helped me. And those are the same thing that I've used with my son
Yeah.
in terms of teaching him one very important thing.
Yeah.
One thing, and he can tell you flexibility and not to be narrow-minded in your thinking, because it's a very rare thing where with leaders and so on is concerned. Not everyone is really flexible. Flexibility is a hell of a thing. You have to be able to vacillate,
Mm-hmm.
to waver between different things and make decisions rather than being lopsided in one way or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And so that was a big thing. Dwayne can tell you that I drill into him. And every time he goes off on one side, it really drove me nuts. That one factor.
Yeah.
So that's what I brought to the military. And those are the things that really kind of propelled me into a lot of whom I am now. I mean, same thing I use with my kid.
Yeah, no, I love that, man. So you touched on a couple things, right? So we talked about the flexibility, we talked about the curiosity and the adaptability. Dwayne, we're gonna wrap this up, man. So now that you are a father, right? Right?
Yeah.
You're a dad, your dad, was there with you, pretty much every step of the way. So you had to and he was being the dad to you that he himself didn't have, right? So there, of course, there were gonna be some mistakes along the way that he was gonna make. There were gonna be some things that he was gonna miss. But all in all, you know that his heart was always in the right place. You know how much
Yeah.
how much your dad loves you. But talk to us a little bit, man, about how being raised by your dad, how that has helped to shape you into the father that you are now.
You on that? I'll start off with the flexibility thing. Right now, my daughter is 2, so she's just learning regular life stuff. That's just a lot of patience and a lot of repetition at
Yeah,
this point. But I would say that being flexible and I want to teach like showing my kids my daughter's very hyperactive. I can see it already at
yeah,
this age, so like
yeah,
everything that my dad has done with me and just the way that just the way that he kind of led with me and everything that we've learned along the way, I feel like is given me. I feel a lot of people feel flustered and they aren't prepared, and I feel like I'm prepared. I feel like I can at least guide my kids through the right stages and point them in the right directions, because I realize even in his stage, because I mean I like at this age, I realize, you can't let your kids just pick what they want to do either, because
right,
kids are
right.
dumb. I hate to say it. That kids are dumb. They're
Yeah,
gonna pick, what I'm saying, the word, whatever. So there is a way of, unintentionally
yeah,
making them busy. We
yeah,
got, got to that when I was later. And I realized, my dad tried to keep me busy a lot, and that helped me grow and helped me learn a lot of different, because I had the mind and I can pick up a lot of different things at once. So keeping me busy was a great thing. And the same thing with my kids. They learn. I'm drilling the speaking, I'm gonna be drilling the grammar. I'm gonna have to brush up on my grammar so I can
yeah,
drill it.
yeah,
The teachings, the staying up. Even with my daughter now, she's people are surprised at her letter recognition and her numbers, and I'm already into like taking every day and let's really let's try, let's practice, let's work on it, because I like education, just like it was very important to my dad, it's very important to me, and I know that it's going to be it's the building block to everything else.
mhm,
Without the right education, you can't continue to build, and you can't build anything without those building blocks. So but yeah, everything that I went through with my dad, I see how it's coming through me. I see how I'm showing that to my kids. And it's crazy because you never realize it down to the mistakes because you're like, you are gonna make mistakes. You're never perfect, you know, like and it's gonna happen. And you have to just be okay with that because that's a
Yeah,
part of parenting and you bounce back and you have to be okay and say that you made mistakes sometimes. So um, yeah, it's I feel prepared. I'll say
yeah,
that much for sure.
yeah,
Be watching my dad and seeing everything, especially him being a single dad. I feel prepared. I see that even with help, how much more you could even do, you know, with having a spouse and somebody in the house, and even, you know, growing later on with my stepmom and stuff, just seeing how everything is. So definitely trying to walk the same path. And I also feel like he walked that path so I can walk a better path. You know what I mean?
yeah,
So we're trying to, I want my kids, just like he wants me to do better than him, I want my
yeah,
kids to do better than me and be richer
yeah,
than me and stuff
yeah.
like that. So we're gonna push it the same way and we're gonna learn from all our mistakes, you know?
No, I love that, man. That's what's up. So David, tell me, man, what's it like looking at your son? You know, and I know he's like, you know, we you started off by saying that he is like a clone of you in a sense, right? So what is it like, you know, watching this young man that you raise and now watching him as a father? How is that for you?
Well, um, just how it is for you and your very your excellent son.
Yeah,
If you ask me, so you know the feeling. I was just being funny there, but
yeah,
yes, it's a feel that to see uh not only that someone who I've been told look a lot like me too,
yeah,
and you know, carrying on the name, that's important. You know, I was extremely hard on him, um, and often being criticized for being for loving the daughters more than the son because
yeah,
of the stance that I take,
yeah,
vice versa. But absolutely, they're different.
yeah,
That's not the case. My son.
yeah,
Your son would always be, that's the one, that's what your name. And you know, we're big in the
yeah,
Caribbean, in the British, and that thing. I mean, the daughters change their name, they got married, they're gone. They don't even know they belong to you again. But
yeah,
that kind of thing, just son, you tend to, a father tend to have a grab on your son, and to see him grow the way he did. And I'm not talking about, do I have to peep up into his, to look up at him? But not literally, but I've seen him, I've seen him grow into great things. To finish school and to have my beautiful granddaughter. No, so the pretty little thing. And so much like him. It's amazing that I could sit back and just watch and say, wow. And sometimes I laugh at him because I see the things when I have her, what she does, and I know that's you. So you're gonna deal with it now. What you give to me is what you're gonna get now. We
Yeah.
often talk about that.
yeah,
But and you know, and my, you know, I've seen that. I also have a grandson too, by the way, with
yeah,
my daughter. So the grandkids thing, looking at them and seeing, just putting you back into your life and just picking out things from them. And you know, parents can tell that. They can see those bits and pieces. I'm very proud of him, extremely proud of Dwayne, and his accomplishment. I'm proud of his focus. He bought me a book. He spoke of business and being business oriented. My dad is very business minded and
mhm,
business. He's always a businessman and a good one too. I have always believed in the 8 to 5:30 type thing for the government, and I'm gone. That's enough for me.
yeah,
But uh, I wish um, Dwayne were to have been um, the type of person he is now when I was much younger, or put it that way, I had somebody who at least saw things the way he does, to be able to kind of guided me more off that type of thing, because it's a waste of time. He talk about working like slave for government job and all that is
yeah,
nonsense.
yeah,
Business is the way to go.
yeah,
So he bought me this book. It was a book for my, I think it was Father's Day. Great book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I think that's
mhm,
what it is.
mhm.
Rich Dad,
Robert
Poor
Yeah.
Dad.
Kiyosaki. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and and that's an eye opener. It's very simple and taught a lot. So again, you know, he teaches me
yeah,
a lot,
yeah, yeah. I
and
think
he's not the teacher, and I'm the
yeah.
student, and so that's a part that I'm very humbled by that.
Yeah, that's the flexibility and the adaptability. The same thing you told
Absolutely,
him, you know, the same thing
absolutely,
you taught him, you have to, you're showing it to him.
absolutely.
Yeah, yeah. So let me ask you this, Dwayne. What are some of the lessons, man, that you find yourself, utilizing? Some of the lessons you learned along the way, you know, being parented by your dad, you know, that you feel like, you know, these things are kind of like first principles that have held true, time and time again. They're proven. What are some of those lessons that you learned from your dad that you still feel like they serve you well today?
My dad used to say a lot. He used to always have different sayings from different philosophers growing
Yeah.
up. So, a lot of them, a lot of them a lot of them stuck with me. I think one to say that that's coming back to me now that I've been living by a lot more now, which you kind of forget because it's a simple one. You think, therefore you are, right? And I
Mm,
feel like that one he used to always say that, and I didn't even. I mean, you get it, but as I got older, I realized how deep that is because everything in the world, everything that you want in existence starts with the thought, And
hmm
I feel like just thinking about that and getting older and just realizing that your mentality has to be in the right place first is even more important now. Just at this age, it's like if you still want to keep going, if you still want to have that resilience now, you have to put your mind in the right place first. You have to feel like you have to be successful, and then everything else will fall into place as long as you 100% put your mind in the right place. So I've been watching how I think a lot lately. And what I say, what the tongue says as well. I've been watching a lot of stuff like that. I think a lot of those that one more so right now I feel like has been a lot. And same thing, it's an easy thing to teach to your kids too, like just to put your mind in the right place first, and you already beat half of the battle. You don't want to do any If you don't want to do something, or if you feel like it's too hard, once you put your mind in the right place, you're already halfway through it, and that one is more so valuable now at this age than it was ever before.
Yeah. No, I love that, man. And so we're gonna wrap this up, man. But before I go, this is a first. So this is the first father-son episode we're doing. This is the first Father's Day episode we're doing. But before we wrap up, I just want to ask both of you guys the same question. And it's a kind of multi-pronged question. So the question is this: is there a question that you wish that I asked that I didn't ask? And also, is there a question that each of you wished I asked the other person that I didn't ask?
I think you covered everything. And he covered everything too, as far as his
Yeah,
mindset and where everything was.
yeah,
So yeah, I can't really think of anything right
yeah.
now
Well,
that I
how
would.
about this, man? What's your funniest moment with your dad? Because I know your dad is hilarious, and
Oh
and
yeah.
he's hilarious, and he's not hilarious on purpose. He's right.
Oh man,
So
we
so
had
give us some air him out, man. What's one of the funniest moments that you know about your dad? Did he lock the keys in the car at the gas station? What did he do?
yeah, my dad had a couple. We definitely, being a single dad, I definitely seen him at those weakest moments.
Yeah.
Locking the keys out, running out of gas. We ran out of gas one time. I think that was probably one of the funniest memories. Yeah, I hate to put him on blast, but
Now,
I,
where
I
were
mean,
you when this happened? Where was this? On the Beltway?
man, nah. Well, we ended up off because I was remember being tired, and I
Yeah.
woke up, and we ended up somewhere. Yeah, I think we ended up getting off on the Beltway. And then he went to a gas station that was closed, so he couldn't go inside. And I think he didn't have his wallet. I remember the whole thing so vividly because I was waking up, and yeah, and he it was yeah, and it's funny because I ran out of gas and I was like, man, look at me doing the
Yeah.
same the same stuff, like getting older.
Yeah.
I'm like, how am I in this position right now? But
Yeah.
I do remember that, and even just how he handled it because he was real just slick about it. He was like, you forgot his wallet. I don't know if we had cell phones at the time or if his phone was there, but I don't know. He was in a bad position. Didn't have anything.
Yeah.
Ran out of gas. And actually there was a nice couple that actually helped us out.
Yeah.
But I remember him, kind of telling me to wake up and to
Yeah.
look alive because he was like, he told me pretty much, he's like, if they see me by myself approaching them, they're not gonna have the same niceness as if they saw you with me. So
Yeah.
he almost told me to get out the car and stand
Yeah.
there,
Yeah.
so they can see you, so they can help us out. And it worked,
Yeah.
and I understood what he was saying. But even in situations like that, you realize because I got to this age and I realized that there are people that can't handle being in bad situations, or they can't handle that. First thing they can do is call mom, call dad, and they don't know how to get out of a situation. And I feel like that, he can tell you I haven't had to call home for a lot because just always having that quick thinking of how to move to the next thing when a problem arises, how to get going, and how to overcome that situation with quickly too. I feel like that's a skill that a lot of people don't have, and that's a skill that I don't even know he knew that he taught me.
Mhm.
But I take bad news really well. I know how to I go straight into survival and problem solving mode. And that's how I am. You know, I don't
Yeah,
spend a lot of time being hurt or being emotional about a situation. You get the news and we move forward and we keep it pushing, you know.
yeah. No, that's
So,
what's up, man. So, David, what about you, man? Is there a question that you wish I'd asked you, or a question you wish I'd asked Dwayne?
Well, I think I have one of both.
Okay, drop it
For
on us.
me, one of the questions I wish you would have asked me
Uh-huh.
would have been because and the reason why I'm saying this is because I do know that parenting, like I said, there's no one, I should say, effective parenting where kids, single parenting, where kids are concerned and doing well and so on in school, academic and so forth, especially foreign kids coming. Um, the struggles. So one of the things I was hoping that you probably would have asked would have been like, if I have to summarize,
Mm.
like my method
Mm-hmm.
as a template that they
Yeah.
could use
Yeah. A framework.
to a framework
Mm-hmm.
to do what I did
Yeah.
as a takeaway. And again, that mold may not fit,
Yeah.
but
Everyone. Yeah.
just from my, what
Absolutely.
would that be?
Yeah.
What would
Sure.
that be?
Drop it on us.
And so there are three ways I would put it. First of all, it's always, I would advise that one leads by example.
Mm-hmm.
Single parent, whether female or and come here and you have your kids to raise in the education system. You want them to get a good education. You want them to be successful. Lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
Show the importance of education by you yourself being, let's say, curious to
Mm-hmm.
learn, no matter what. Everybody don't have to go to college,
Mm-hmm.
but again, you don't have to settle for the worst because your kids are looking.
Mm-hmm.
They're looking and they take note. Some of
Mm-hmm.
the things that Dwayne have said to me is like a wake up. Shows that and they won't tell you that. You'll be like, oh, you remember that, like things like that. I mean, and some of it came from even discussion as we get older, like me and him talking, and so things he would share. Or like, I'm surprised that you were even paying attention to that. So you really want to when it comes to education, whether you go back to do something in childcare, like my mother when she came here,
Mm-hmm.
she didn't have a touch for education, but it's amazing. I asked her, Mom, how the hell you learn to read?
Yeah.
I remember asking her that because she was preparing for the childcare thing, and you heard me talk about that, spoke
Yeah.
of it at
Yeah.
the thing. I mean, and she's told me when we left that she would go into her room and she would use my sister and my textbook and she would go through things and learn like that. And the Bible, her Bible is all written up from
Yeah.
going to church a lot and so on.
Yeah.
Such a brilliant woman. I
Yeah.
thought I really took it off on my father, but I gave my mother. My father is not brighter than my mother. I'm telling you, she's brilliant.
Yeah.
Just lock
Yeah.
that thing. I mean, for what she has done, come to the United States, can breathe her way in the train and go to job and all that.
Yeah.
That's my mother. I mean, I never knew she was like that. This is a lady who could not have helped me when I was a little kid,
Yeah.
have grown. So that's what I meant. You
Yeah.
lead by example. You go back to school and do something so
Mhm.
your kids can see and motivate them to do. And that's what one.
Yeah.
Another thing I would say is it's important that you teach responsibility.
Mm-hmm.
Teach it, and you do so early, very early. Um, you know, you want to teach them how to be responsible. You want to don't give to them, but teach them to fish so that they can survive, that kind of thing. You understand? And with responsibility comes things like flexibility and so on. Those very important, not to be narrow-minded and so on, but teach them to to be responsible for everything. Don't just give to them.
Yeah.
Let them own it. It's important.
Yeah.
And so the final thing I think would be more like creating a stable, like a stable environment
Mm-hmm.
is
Mm-hmm.
very important.
Yeah.
In really create a stable environment. Make sure that they look around. They have at least the basic.
Mm-hmm.
Like Dwayne said, he had, I should say, the could print the papers and so on, and they look at him in school. They're very basic. Just work hard. Try to create the basic for your kids.
Mm-hmm.
So leading by example, creating a stable environment, and also teaching them the arts and the importance of to be responsible. Responsibility is very necessary. On the other hand, on the flip side to that, with Dwayne, I wish he had he talked about one and he mentioned philosophy. That's an amazing one that he think. I believe in me, some of it. And as I learned the concept, he was a brilliant kid. Memory. Just like me. That's what took me to school a lot. Memory. I really could have memorized well. And I think I took that really from my dad. He's an excellent. He could memorize very well. But Dwayne, there was a philosophy that I taught him, which I see, I remember, I hear, I forget, but I do. Dwayne, I don't know if you remember that. I understand.
Yeah, I definitely remember that one too. Like I said, there was so many.
That was the big one. And why I taught him that. That was from Confucius. I use that, things like that. You learn a little thing and you just throw it to him because he grasped those kind of big concepts very early in his age and it really worked. That's why I never put him on medication. I never took him to doctor for those psychiatrists and all that crap. Because first of all, they're gonna stigmatize you in school. They're gonna put you aside and they will take your meds and make you look like an idiot. That wasn't my thing. I taught him. I was his doctor. And so I remember we were in a supermarket one time and he was pulling things. He was so crazy like that, to start pulling things down. And I was like that too when I was younger. I was the same exact thing like him. Always want to touch. It's just like you can't control it. It was a way. And he looked at me and he said, Dad, I just want to do, I feel like I want to do something. And that stood in my head. And so I taught him that I see, I remember, I hear, I forget, but when I do, I understand. So when he get that concept in, he's going to I would just say the name of the philosopher for him afterwards. So if you start pulling things down and doing his own thing that was out of order, I would say, Dwayne, Confucius. And that's it. He stopped.
You would get it.
Amazing. And as
that was a big one.
I had to change strategies as we go along because he outgrow those. So you got to always constantly keep his age as he go. You got to know your kids and you got to create your own mechanism.
Absolutely.
To be able to steer it. And that's what I did. So I wish I spoke a little about that. That's an important one.
That's an important one for sure.
No, I love that, man. I love that. So and I'm glad that you shared that with us, man. So fellas, I'm really grateful for y'all taking the time out to do this with us, man. This has been a fantastic episode. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us, man. I think what you're doing, I think what you're doing is really cool. I think that if my dad had a channel like this, even back when he was growing up, that he would have definitely just had, he would have been able to just, you know what I mean? Like I said, maybe just maneuver differently as far as growing up in America and stuff like that. So I definitely think that every Caribbean kid, especially like first generation, us that are really growing up out here and our parents just came out here, I feel like this will be really big because this is going to be happening also in the future. Forever there will be new generations of first generation families coming out here. So I think that as the channel grows too, it'll be great for people to be able to look at these and have little lessons. And I think it's great. I think it's great what you're doing.
Thank you.
Yes, I would just echo on that, Mr. Andrews. I have to give it to you. I really, and you're proud. Your kids should be extremely proud of you. I saw your daughter follow in your footstep, and I sure your son is doing this thing, and this is great. This is amazing. It's just some marketing to get. There's so many people who can benefit from this, and these are things that are hidden behind the scene. I never even thought of this. I mean, when I had the opportunity of looking at a few of your sessions and so on, I had to shake my head because I saw the importance of where this definitely is heading and how we can benefit so many people like myself and others whom we have shared. And you're asking the right question, the right place, the right time. Right question, right place, right time.
I appreciate it, man.
I appreciate this.
Yeah. I think what's really vital is to have folks just share their stories, man, because there's so much commonality in between the stories, right? And that's what resonates with people. So I appreciate you guys taking the time out. Happy Father's Day to both of you.
Thank you.
And happy Father's Day to you too.
Happy Father's Day, man.
All right,
All
this has
right.
been another
Take care.
episode. Yep, another episode of the Immigrant Education Collaborative Podcast. See you next time.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks.